Hey YouTube, today we're going to be looking at some Colt 1911s, and I had a request that I go in depth about this subject matter today, and I've covered it a couple times in a couple videos, bits and pieces, but I'm going to do the most in-depth discussion about the subject that I can. And first of all, I want to say thank you folks for the people that watch my videos. I've absolutely been dealing with some health issues here lately, and I think we're on the home stretch, and we are almost back to normal here. So I figured I'd make this video today, and we'll see how it goes. So before we go any further, I'm gonna let you know that all three of these 1911s, they are not loaded. They are clear, and as I pick them up, I will show you there's nothing in them. So the subject matter for today is: what is the difference in a Series 70, a Series 80, and a Series 90 Colt 1911? Now, I'm going to say Colt 1911 because Colt is the one that coined the phrase Series 70, Series 80, and Series 90. Nobody else has done that. It's Colt. Colt was the one that originally made the 1911, and they went through some of the changes, and they made up coined the names Series 70, Series 80, Series 90, and other people just follow suit when they buy a firearm. They're like, is that a Series 70 or a Series 80? And I'm going to explain to you as best as I know how, and I'm not an expert on what this means. So, we're going to use all Colts here, and we're going to start with this old one here. Now, a lot of people will say when they buy a gun, they're like, I bought a pre-Series 70. Well, this one here would be a pre-Series 70, and I'm going to show you that it's not loaded. So this is an original design M1911, and this is the original one. This one, particular one, I've showed it before, was made in 1918. And I'll show you some of the close-ups. This is an actual military, Army-issued Colt 1911, an original one from the World War I area. And this would what many would call a quote-unquote pre-Series 70. Now, what does pre-Series 70 mean? Well, it really means nothing, folks. It just means it's an original 1911. And when the 1911 was made, on the internal here, there's no kind of firing pin block or anything like that. And they just made a regular semi-automatic pistol, and this is the way it was made. And there was no series or anything when this particular gun came out, and besides a couple cosmetic changes here and there, and we've gone over that, the scalloping and the size of this beaver tail and all that, it virtually went unchanged until 1970. Now, we're not talking about the A1 features and all that, like I just said. There was a couple differences, and you'll see in the next one I show you. They had an arched mainspring housing. They put a little bit bigger beaver tail. They scalped this out. They changed the trigger, the sights a little bit, but the actual way this gun operates was 100% unchanged until 1970. So basically, if you bought a Colt 1911 before 1970, you have a quote-unquote pre-Series 70. So that just, all that is it was just an older gun, folks. No, nothing different, nothing special or anything like that. It was just a pre-Series 70. Now, we're going to go into the next one. When 1970 hit, let me show you that this gun's not loaded. When 1970 hit, Colt started producing. They wanted to do something a little bit different, and this is a regular bone stock Colt 1911 also. This one has the scalloped out trigger guard, and it has the arched mainspring housing, a little bit bigger beaver tail here. But other than that, this is a bone stock Government Model Colt 1911, and this is what they call a Series 70. You'll see it says Colt Government Model right here, and on this side it says Colt Mark IV Series 70, Government Model 45 automatic caliber. I'm gonna do my best to make this roll mark show up. It's just This Colt bluing is so shiny, it shows all the little fingerprints and everything like that. But regular Government Model, no different than the one I just showed you, just a little bit newer. So when was this one made? This one was made in the mid-70s. So what is the difference in this gun, besides the A1 features on here that I just went over, some of the revisions they did after 1924, what is the difference in this gun and a pre-Series 70? Well, I'm going to show you the difference here, folks, and we're going to be very, 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 very careful doing this on camera because sometimes it can get a little tricky. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take this gun, and I'm going to tear it down real quick for you here on camera. I'm going to remove the plunger from it. This can be a little tricky on camera, so just bear with me. I'm going to slide this slide back a little bit. And line this up just right, and this will pop right out. Slide this slide off of here. And we'll slide this barrel out. This is where you're going to see the difference. So we've got this all broken down right here. We're going to do our best to keep all this together. Now, the older one, I'm going to take this one down too, just for demonstration purposes there. So we're going to take this one apart. Same thing, remove the plunger, slide the slide back. Same with breaking down any 1911. I have videos on how to break these down and clean them. People make it more complicated than what it really is, but it's really not complicated at all, folks. Play with them a little bit and familiarize yourself with them, and nothing's really that hard. Alright, so here we go. They're all broken down. So on a pre-Series 70, like the one I'm holding in my hand, this is a regular 1911 barrel, and this is the barrel bushing to it. Just a little bushing that goes over here that locks this barrel into place. As it slides forward, it locks the barrel into place and keeps it from moving. And it locks up in these two little lugs here too. And that's why the 1911 is a real accurate gun, the way this thing works. Now, in 1970, they decided to make the gun a little bit more accurate. So the Colt engineers came up with this collet bushing. If you look here on the end, it's got these little fingers on it, and when this thing moves forward right here, you'll see it kind of stops and it tightens up quite a bit here, folks. And this keeps the barrel from moving. These fingers, these little fingers right here, grab onto the end of this barrel. If I was to jam this all the way forward to get real tight, but that's why you don't take these off. And if you can see, I can't hardly even rotate this around. And if you look at the pre-Series 70, I can sit here and slip this on and off all day long. So this one here is going to be a little bit tighter. And this is what makes a Series 70 a Series 70, is this finger collet bushing that they put on here. That's the only change they did. If you look at anything else on this gun, anything else, they're identical. We're going to look at the slide side by side. There's no difference in them, folks. There's virtually no change. And one of these guns here, this one on the right here, was made in the 1970s, and this one was made in the 19-teens. And there's no difference here. The main thing you're going to look for is down here on the bottom, you'll see no kind of plunger or anything like that for firing pin block system. Exactly the same. And what a lot of people don't understand is the one on top here that was made in 1918, that is still what people think of as the quote-unquote Series 70 firing system. And it's not the Series 70, it's just the 1911 firing system. Series 70, the difference is this collet bushing right here on the end. They changed over to that, and that's what made it a Series 70. So they started calling them Series 70s. Well, moving down the road, and folks, it's going to be hard for me to show you this because I don't have one here. Before I go any further, I'm going to show you this last one here. This one's a gold cup. So this is also a Series 70 gun, and I'll show you some of the close-ups of it. It says Colt Mark IV Series 70, and this one says Gold Cup National Match. And on the other side, it says Gold Cup. This one was made about the same year as this one here. And the difference in this one is absolutely nothing than this one right here. This is when they just start modifying the 1911. It has nothing to do with any series or anything like that. They did a little trigger work and fitted it, put a little bit better sights and serrations and fancied them up a little bit, put some texturing on the front. But this is a Gold Cup. So this is more of a competition target gun, and this is just a regular government model. So that's the difference. Now, when you moved into the year around 1983, these guns are all quote-unquote Series 70 when you bought the regular government model Colt. Up until 1983, the government got involved. And anytime the government gets involved, it's always good, folks. Everybody likes the government getting involved in their business. So they decided they wanted to make guns a lot safer for the public, because they didn't feel that these guns were safe enough, and they weren't drop safe or anything like that, even though the United States military had been using these for about 80 years at that point. They didn't feel that they were safe enough. So while I'm talking here, I'm going to be putting these back together here so we don't get a lot of stuff confused here. So the government decided they would approach Colt and ask them if they could put some kind of safety device on them. Even though a 1911 has, 2 external safety devices on them already, which is more than a lot of these modern guns have, that wasn't safe enough for the government. So they decided they wanted to see if they could intervene and make things a little bit more safer. So what they did is Colt pretty much caved into the government, and they added what they call a firing pin block on them. And what they did is on the internals of the gun, there's like you'll look underneath here, there'll be like a little round plunger that goes on the inside of the slide. It's inserted on the inside of the slide, and that pushes down on like this little lever that comes up out of the frame, and what it does, it blocks the firing pin when the thing is not in use. It blocks the firing pin, and supposedly it makes it a little more drop safe. Now, what it really does, folks, and I'm going to tell you the truth, it makes the trigger not quite as nice. And what everybody likes about the 1911, what it's known for, is its exceptional trigger. And when you start adding moving parts into a firearm, it's more stuff, more friction, and it's also more stuff to that can go wrong with it. So they added all that stuff into it to put a firing pin block on it, and thus was born the Series 80. So the guns look identical. You could get a Gold Cup National Match, or you can get a regular government model, but instead of saying Series 70, it said Series 80. That was the big difference, folks. And the Series 8, Series 70 and the Series 80s, they put that firing pin block in them. And people absolutely hated it when it came out. I mean, they hated it. Nobody liked it. They did not like the Series 80 at all because the trigger wasn't as nice. It really was greatly affected by it. And if you're one of these people that like to take and modify your guns or take it to your gunsmith and have trigger jobs done on them, most gunsmiths won't even touch them because they're harder to work on. It complicates things on the inside because of all the moving parts on the inside that were added onto them, and it's just nothing really was accomplished by putting all that stuff in there. And I always attribute it to Colt caving into the government, kind of like Smith & Wesson did when they added that key lock on the side that everybody does not like. All the Smith & Wesson people do not like. That was the same kind of deal there. The government intervened, made a deal with them, and they made a bad decision, basically. And thus all Series 80 guns, most people try and shy away from them when they're looking at Colt 1911s. They try and shy away from the Series 80s. So the difference in the Series 70 and the Series 80s is basically the firing pin block systems that go into them. And when you take one of these guns, if you go to a gun show or a gun store or something that has one of these old Colt 1911s, you lock the slide back on it, and you just look down here. If you see a little round pin looking thing down into the cylinder, you know that's not a Series 70 gun. I mean, obviously on a Colt, most of them are going to be marked Series 70, but if you don't know what you're looking for, that's what you look for. And just know that the triggers will not be as good. It's going to be a little bit harder to modify. It's a little bit harder to take apart and disassemble and clean and stuff like that when you get into the Series 80s. They also did away with the collet bushings that go on the end of these when they hit the Series 7 or the Series 80s. A lot of people complained about the collet bushings breaking. That collet bushing I showed you that grips on the end of that barrel. A lot of people says that the fingers would break off of them. I've never had a problem with that. I've had several Series 70 Colt 1911s over the years. I've never had a problem with them, but obviously some people did, and Colt made the decision to not make that anymore. And when they went to the Series 80 and they put the firing pin block system in them, they also did away with the collet bushing. So that was the Series 80 was born. Now we're going to move into the 90s. And Colt came out with a little gun. It was smaller than a commander size. And I've often told you folks, I'm a big 1911 guy. This is the configuration that works the best right here, folks. The 5-inch, full-size John Moses Browning design 1911. That's the one that works the best. Now, there's been other companies that come out with super 1911s. Like, the main one that comes to mind is Wilson Combat. And I've shown several Wilson Combats on here. They figured out how to make them work by shortening the barrel to them a little bit, making a commander size and all that. A lot of people's tried over the years, but usually you start running into problems with 1911s when you start shortening barrels and shortening frames and stuff like that. It throws the timing of this slide off. This design was designed over 100 years ago to work with a 5-inch barrel, 45 ACP cartridge, and full-size frame. And when you start deviating away from an original design, you usually start running into problems. But anyway, Colt came out with what they call the Colt Defender, and it's like an officer-size model. If you don't know what I mean by officer-size model, it's a shortened frame and a shortened slide. So basically, if I hold my finger here and here, that's about what it looks like. It's a real small gun. It was called the Colt Defender. And they wrote on the side of it, and on one side it says Colt Defender, and on the other side, on this side, it says Series 90. Now, a lot of people have asked, what is the difference in a Series 90 and a Series 80 and a Series 70? Well, folks, there's absolutely not one internal change that they did with the Series 90. It was 100% marketing. That's all it is. And Colt is the master of gimmicks and marketing. They'll make these 1911s, they'll engrave them with gold and put all this stupid stuff on them for different years, commemorative ones, and people don't shoot them. It means nothing, folks. Nothing. There's no difference. The thing says Series 90 because they used it, whoever the marketing person for Colt at the time thought it'd be cool, since it was in the 1990s, to put Series 90 on the side. Now, Colt also made, and I saw one this weekend, I love those things. I don't have one, I wish I did. Guy had what they call a Colt Double Eagle. And what it is basically like a Sig Sauer double action, single stack 45. It says Double Eagle on one side, and on the other side it says Series 90 because it came out in the 1990s also. It was kind of a short-lived little deal that Colt had going on, and that actually was a neat little gun, but it also said Series 90, and it isn't even a 1911. It's a double action, single action 45 caliber pistol. So Series 90 means nothing. So basically, to recap things, you have the pre-Series 70, which is the original design, that went from 1911 until 1969. Anything from there is called a pre-Series 70. There's no collet bushing in it, there's no firing pin block in it, and this is what you get. I mean, depending on what year or what model or what kind of modifications you have, you're basically just going to get a regular Colt 1911. And I say Colt, Colt's the one that coined all these phrases, Series 70. Then in 1970, they came out with the Series 70, and you still got a basic Colt 1911, and all they did was add that collet bushing that I showed you earlier when I broke these down. And that's what makes this gun, I'm going to wipe these fingerprints off of it a little bit. That's what makes this gun a Series 70, folks. It's marked Series 70. Other than that, it's just a plain Jane Colt 1911. And then in 1983, they decided the government intervened, and then they wanted to put the firing pin block on the inside of them. So they did away with the collet bushing on the end of them, and they added the firing pin block in them, and they stamped Series 80 on the side. This is not a Series 80, this is still a Series 70, but you can get the same models. You can get this Gold Cup National Match, or you can get the Government Model. And if you looked at them from 5 feet away without reading the gold roll marks, they looked exactly like these two guns. Exactly. There's no difference. Same grips, same finish, same kind of roll mark stamping. It just said Series 80 instead of Series 70. Did not have the collet bushings in the end of them. And it did have the firing pin block systems in them. And then in 1990s, they just came out with a different little gun, like a little Defender that made it a little bit smaller, and then a couple other things that they just stamped Series 90 on, and it was a sales gimmick, folks. That's all it was. Sales gimmick. Now, if you move into the 2000s, people had complained so much about they missed these Series 70 guns, because pretty much every 1911 Colt had was a Series 80 then. They had that firing pin block in them, and a little bit harder to modify the triggers and do stuff like that. The cool stuff people like to do in 1911s. And Colt listened to the people, and they re-released this Government Model Series 70, and it looked exactly like this gun. It had the wood grips. They were a little bit different. The roll marks said Colt, exactly. It said Colt Mark IV Series 70 on them. And what they did is they removed the firing pin block. But folks, what they did not do is put that collet bushing on the end of it, which actually made it a Series 70. They wrote Series 70 on them because basically all they did was take the firing pin block out of it and make a regular Government Model 1911 that looked just like this. Basically, this is closer to what they made. They just took the firing pin block out, and it had a regular bushing on the end, and they actually made a pre-Series 70 gun, if you want to get downright technical about it. But they called it the Series 70, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you can still buy that gun today. If not, they call it the Classic Series now. They don't even call it Series 70. But for a very long time, they wrote Series 70 on top of them, and they removed the firing pin block, so people could say they had a quote-unquote Series 70 gun, which a lot of people don't even know. They did not actually even have a Series 70 gun. They just had one without a firing pin block in them. But anyway, folks, that's about the most in-depth discussion I can think, the most in-depth way I can think to describe the difference in a pre-Series 70 which is this one, a Series 70, which are these two, Series 80 and Series 90. I don't have Series 80s or Series 90s here, but if you have any questions on this subject matter, you feel free to reach out to me. I'm feeling a lot better now, and I'm going to start posting a few more videos on here. Thank you very much for watching my video today, and you folks have a great day.